The rain in Seoul did not wash things clean, it just made the grime slicker, turning the neon-drenched alleyways into mirrors for the sins of the city. Elena's lungs burned with the metallic taste of copper and terror, a sensation so sharp it felt like swallowing razor blades. She should not have been there. She should not have taken the shortcut behind the club. And she definitely should not have seen the man in the white suit drive a sashimi knife into the throat of the Minister of Trade. She pressed her back against the rough brick of a dumpster, her breath coming in ragged, shallow gasps that made her ribs ache. Do not breathe. Do not move. Become invisible. I smell perfume, a voice drifted from the mouth of the alley. It was not the man in the white suit. It was worse. It was a voice like crushing gravel, Director Choi's head of security. Cheap stuff. Vanilla and fear. Elena's heart hammered against her sternum, a frantic bird trapping itself in a cage of bone. She slid her hand down to her pocket, gripping her phone so hard the plastic creaked. One photo. That was all she had managed to snap before the flash betrayed her. One photo of Choi Min-suk standing over a bleeding corpse. It was her death sentence, and right now, it was the only leverage she had against a city that wanted to swallow her whole. Steps clicked on the wet pavement. Closer. She scrambled, her thrift store sneakers slipping on oil and rainwater. She burst from cover, sprinting toward the main street. The shout behind her was guttural, a command to kill. A bullet chipped the brick inches from her ear, the sonic crack sending a jolt of electricity down her spine that nearly buckled her knees. She hit the main avenue, expecting safety in the crowd, but the street was eerily empty. Just the rain, the neon signs buzzing like angry wasps, and a line of 3 matte black sedans idling at the curb. They were not police. They were too expensive, too pristine. They looked like sharks wading in dark water. Elena skidded to a halt. Behind her, Choi's men were emerging from the alley. In front of her, the rear door of the middle sedan swung open. It was not an invitation, it was a mouth opening. Get in, a voice commanded from the shadows of the car's interior. It was deep, devoid of inflection, and colder than the rain soaking through her thin blouse. Elena hesitated, her head whipping back to see Choi's men raising their weapons. The choice was binary and brutal, a bullet in the back, or the unknown darkness of the car. Survival instinct bypassed her logic. She dove into the back seat just as another gunshot shattered the night air. The door slammed shut, sealing out the noise of the rain and the violence. The silence inside was immediate and oppressive. The air smelled of expensive leather, aged whiskey, and something woodsy and dangerous, a scent that made the hairs on her arms stand up. Drive, the men said. The car surged forward, pressing Elena back into the leather seats. She scrambled to the far door, her hand fumbling for the handle. Locked. Child lock. She was trapped. I would not, the men spoke again. Elena turned slowly, her eyes adjusting to the dim interior light. The man sitting next to her was a ghost story made flesh. Kong Tae-oh. She knew his face from the business tabloids and the whispered rumors in the back of the club where she washed dishes. The butcher in a bespoke suit. The heir to the Kong syndicate, the sworn enemy of the men she had just seen commit murder. He was terrifyingly beautiful in a way that signaled danger. Sharp cheekbones that could cut glass, eyes the color of charred obsidian, and a stillness that was unnatural. He was not looking at her, he was looking at a tablet, his finger scrolling with bored precision. You have something that belongs to me, he said, finally lifting his gaze. His eyes did not just look at her, they dismantled her. I do not have money, Elena stammered, her voice trembling. I'm nobody. Just let me out at the next corner. You have a phone, Tae-oh corrected, his gaze dropping to her white-knuckled grip on the device. And on that phone is a picture of Choi Min-suk ending his political career. Or ending his life, if the picture finds its way to the right people. Elena pulled the phone against her chest, a useless shield. How do you know? I know everything that happens in my district, Elena Vaganova. Hearing her full name on his lips sent a wave of nausea rolling through her stomach. He knew her. He knew the orphan from Vladivostok who was working illegally in Seoul. He knew she had no family, no protection, no way out. Choi will kill you for that photo, Tae-oh continued, his voice smooth, like velvet wrapped around a knife. His men are already tracking the signal. You have, by my estimate, 14 minutes before they intercept this car. They will run us off the bridge, drag you out, and peel the skin from your bones until you unlock that device. Elena's blood turned to ice. She stared at him, horror choking her. Why are you helping me? Helping. Teo's lips quirked up in a humorless smile. It did not reach his eyes. I'm not helping you. I'm acquiring an asset. He extended a hand. The cuff of his pristine white shirt pulled back, revealing ink, black, aggressive brushstrokes of a tattoo that disappeared up his forearm. Give me the phone. If I give it to you, you'll just kill me too, she whispered. You re the same as him. Something flashed in Teo's eyes, not anger, but a spark of interest. He leaned forward, closing the distance between them until his cologne filled her senses, overpowering the smell of rain and fear. The air in the car thickened, becoming heavy and difficult to breathe. I am nothing like Choi, he murmured. Choi is a butcher who enjoys the mess. I am a businessman who appreciates efficiency. If I wanted you dead, Elena, you would not have made it inside this car. He did not grab the phone. He just held his hand out, waiting. The authority radiating off him was a physical weight, pressing down on her shoulders. Trembling, she placed the phone in his palm. He did not look at it. He slipped it into his jacket pocket. Good. Now we discuss the price of your life. Price. Choi knows you saw him. He will not stop hunting you. The police are on his payroll. The ports are watched. You have nowhere to go. Teo leaned back, crossing his legs. Unless you belong to someone untouchable. The car began to slow, turning into the underground entrance of a skyscraper that pierced the Seoul skyline like a black needle. The Kong Tower. What are you saying? Elena asked, her pulse fluttering in her throat like a trapped moth. I need a wife, Teo said. He said it with the same casual tone one might use to order coffee. My board of directors is skittish. They think a single man is volatile. They want stability. A marriage solidifies my position and, coincidentally, gives me the legal standing to protect you from extradition or disappearance. Elena laughed, a sharp, hysterical sound that scraped her throat. You want me to marry you? I'm a dishwasher. I'm a foreigner. I'm nothing. You are the witness who can destroy my enemy, Teo corrected. That makes you the most valuable woman in Seoul tonight. The car stopped. The door opened. Teo stepped out, then turned, extending a hand to her. Come, Elena. The wolves are behind you. I am the only door that locks. She looked at his hand, then back at the dark tunnel behind them. She took his hand. His skin was rough, calloused, shockingly warm against her freezing fingers. He pulled her out, his grip firm, possessive. The elevator ride to the penthouse took 40 seconds. 40 seconds of silence where Elena could hear her own heart thundering in her ears. When the doors opened, she was not greeted by a home, but by a fortress. Floor-to-ceiling glass overlooked the city, cold marble floors, abstract art that looked like violence captured in oil. Strip, Teo commanded, walking toward a wet bar and pouring himself a drink. Elena froze, her arms crossing over her chest. What? Your clothes are wet. They smell of the alley. And, he took a sip of amber liquid, turning to face her, we have a wedding to attend in 2 hours. My stylists are waiting in the guest wing. 2 hours. You re-insane. I am efficient, he countered. He set the glass down with a sharp clink. He walked toward her, the predatory grace of his movement making her breath hitch. He stopped inches from her. She had to crane her neck to look him in the eye. Listen to me carefully, he said, his voice dropping to a low rumble that vibrated in her chest. This is not a romance. This is a transaction. I give you life, you give me loyalty. You will wear the ring. You will smile for the cameras. You will live in this house, sleep in my bed, and pretend that you adore me. And if I refuse? Teo reached out, his index finger tracing the line of her jaw. His touch was electric, sending a jolt of heat racing through her shivering body. It was not gentle, it was claiming. Then I opened the door, he whispered, nodding toward the elevator. And I let Choi finish what he started. Elena looked into his eyes, vast, dark, and empty of mercy. She realized then that the golden cage was not just a metaphor. It was this man. Fine, she breathed. I'll do it. Teo did not smile. He just stared at her mouth for a second too long, his pupils dilating. Smart girl. The next 2 hours were a blur of aggressive luxury. Hands pulled at her, scrubbed her skin until it was raw, painted her face, and shoved her into a dress that cost more than she would earn in 10 lifetimes. It was white silk, high-necked, backless, clinging to every curve of her body like a second skin. When she looked in the mirror, she did not recognize herself. The terrified girl from the alley was gone. In her place stood a porcelain doll, beautiful and hollow. The ceremony was held in the penthouse's private atrium. A judge was there, looking nervous and sweating profusely. 2 witnesses, men in dark suits who looked like they carried guns under their jackets, stood silently. Teo wore a tuxedo that fit him with lethal precision. When he took her hand to slide the diamond ring onto her finger, his grip was iron. The diamond was heavy, a cold weight that felt like a shackle. Do you, Kong Teo? I do, Teo cut the judge off, bored. And do you, Elena? Elena looked at the ring, then at Teo's face. He was watching her with that same intense, calculating look. Survival, she told herself. This is just survival. I do, she whispered. Sign here. The ink was barely dry on the marriage license when the judge was ushered out. The silence returned, heavier than before. They were married. She was the wife of the monster of Seoul. Come, Teo said. You reshaking. I'm terrified, she admitted, the adrenaline finally crashing, leaving her knees weak. Good. Fear keeps you alert. He led her not to the guest wing, but to the master suite. The double doors opened to reveal a room dominated by a massive bed, the city light spilling across the dark duvet. We have to. Elena's voice died in her throat. We have to make it look real, Teo said, loosening his tie. The staff talks. If we sleep in separate rooms on our wedding night, the rumors start by breakfast. Choi will know it's a sham. He walked past her, throwing his jacket onto a chair. He began to unbutton his shirt. Turn around if you re-shy, wife. Elena turned her back, her heart pounding so hard she thought her ribs might crack. She heard the rustle of fabric, the sound of a belt buckle unlatching. She squeezed her eyes shut. It's a transaction. Just a transaction. You can turn around, he said. She turned. Teo was shirtless. The air left her lungs in a rush. It was not just the muscle, though he was carved from stone, it was the scars. And the tattoos. The black ink that started at his wrist snaked up his arm, across his chest, and curled around his neck. A dragon. A demon. It was intricate, violent art. But Teo was not looking at her face anymore. He was staring at her shoulder. The backless dress exposed her skin. Specifically, it exposed the small, jagged scar just above her right shoulder blade, a burn mark shaped like a crescent moon. A souvenir from a fire in an orphanage almost 20 years ago. A fire she had barely survived. Teo's face, usually a mask of bored indifference, had gone deadly still. The color drained from his complexion, leaving him ashen. Where did you get that? His voice was a rasp, unrecognizable. Elena flinched, covering the mark with her hand. It's just an old burn. From childhood. Teo moved. He did not walk, he blurred. In a heartbeat, he was across the room, crowding her space. He grabbed her arm, not to hurt, but to move her hand away. His grip was desperate, his fingers trembling slightly. The fire, he whispered, staring at the crescent scar as if it were a ghost. Vladivostok. The St. Peter's home for children. Elena froze. How do you know the name of the orphanage? Teo's eyes snapped to hers. The darkness in them was swirling, chaotic. The predator was gone, replaced by something far more volatile. A man who had just seen a dead body rise from the grave. I was there, he said, the words falling like stones. I was the boy who pulled you out. Elena's mind reeled. The memory was fragmented, smoke, screaming, the heat melting her skin. A boy. Yes, there had been a boy. He had held her hand in the ambulance. He had whispered that he would come back. But he never did. She had assumed he died. Nicky, she breathed, the childhood nickname surfacing from the depths of her memory. Teo looked at her, and for the first time, she saw a crack in the armor. A fissure of raw, bleeding emotion. He reached out, his hand hovering over the scar, then moving up to cup her neck. His thumb pressed against her pulse, which was fluttering wildly against his skin. They told me you died, he said, his voice thickening with a mix of rage and wonder. They told me the fire took you. I survived. They moved me to a different home. Teo's hand tightened on her neck. Not choking her, but anchoring her. His other arm wound around her waist, pulling her flush against his hard, bare chest. The heat of his body was overwhelming, branding her through the thin silk of her dress. I mourned you, he hissed, his face inches from hers. For 15 years, I have carried your ghost. I built this empire on the ashes of that day. The realization hit him, and his expression shifted from shock to a terrifying, absolute possession. The business transaction was gone. The witness was gone. You are not just my wife, he murmured, his lips brushing against her temple, sending shivers cascading down her spine. You are my life. He pulled back just enough to look into her eyes, and the intensity of his gaze made her knees buckle. I told you this was a transaction, Elena. I lied. His hand slid up into her hair, gripping the strands tight, tilting her head back. I am never letting you go. Choi would not just die for hunting you, Teo promised, a dark vow that seemed to suck the light out of the room. I will burn this entire city to the ground for ever daring to touch what is mine. He lowered his head, his mouth hovering over hers, the threat and the promise mingling in the scant inch of space between them. Welcome home, Malish. The silence in the penthouse following Teo's confession was not peaceful, it was heavy, suffocating, like the air before a tornado touches down. Elena stood frozen, the silk of her wedding dress feeling less like fabric and more like a shroud. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm against her ribs, a trapped bird throwing itself against the bars of its cage. Malish, she whispered, the Russian endearment tasting like ash and old memories on her tongue. You Nicky. The boy with the matches. Teo did not answer with words. He answered with a possessiveness that made her knees turn to water. He pulled her flush against him, his hands roaming over her back, tracing the ridges of her spine as if checking for structural damage. He was not hugging her, he was cataloging her. Confirming she was solid. Confirming she was not a hallucination born of whiskey and regret. I buried an empty coffin, he rasped, his voice vibrating against her collarbone. 15 years ago. I stood in the rain in Vladivostok and watched them lower a box with your name on it into the mud. I swore to kill the world for taking you. His grip tightened, bruisingly sweet. And now you here. In my house. Wearing my ring. He pulled back, his dark eyes burning with a feverish intensity that terrified her. The cool, calculating businessman was gone. In his place was something feral, a starving creature that had finally found sustenance. You do not leave this room, he commanded, the softness vanishing. Not tonight. Not tomorrow. Teo, you do not leave my sight. He stepped back, running a hand through his hair, his composure fracturing. Choi. God, if Choi knew who you were. If he knew you were the ghost that haunts me. He turned abruptly, marching toward the door, locking it with a decisive click, then engaging a secondary deadbolt. He paced the room, a tiger in a golden cage, muttering in a mix of Korean and Russian. Elena watched him, her chest constricting. She had traded a quick death in an alley for a slow suffocation in a penthouse. Teo, she said, finding her voice. You re-scaring me. He stopped. The muscles in his back coiled tight under his tattoos. He turned slowly, and the look on his face broke her heart before she could stop it. It was raw, naked vulnerability masked by violence. Good, he said softly. Fear keeps you close. If you scared of the world, you stay behind me. And if you behind me, I can kill anything that tries to touch you. He did not sleep that night. He made her lie in the center of the massive bed, covering her with the duvet like she was made of glass. He sat in the armchair by the window, a gun resting on the small table beside a glass of water, watching her. Every time she shifted, his eyes snapped to her, alert, predatory, protective. Elena pretended to sleep, but her mind was a storm. She remembered the boy who had shared his bread with her in the orphanage. The boy who had held her hand while the building burned. That boy was gone. This man, this Kong Tae-oh, was a weapon forged in the fires that had scarred her. The next 3 days were a masterclass in high-end imprisonment. The penthouse was impenetrable. Security guards with earpieces and dead eyes stood at every elevator, every stairwell. Elena's phone had been confiscated, for her safety, and replaced with a device that only had one number saved: husband. She tried to argue. She tried to yell. But Tae-oh met her fury with a wall of immovable calm. I need to work, she argued on the second morning, following him into the kitchen where a chef was silently preparing an omelette. I have a shift at the club. You own the club now, Tae-oh said without looking up from his tablet. I bought the building at 4:00 a.m. You retired. You see, not just by my life. I already did. He stood, closing the distance between them in 2 long strides. He reached out, his thumb brushing a stray curl from her forehead. The touch was electric, sending a jolt of heat straight to her belly. I bought your debt, your apartment lease, and your workplace. Every tether you had to the outside world is cut. You refloating, Elena. And I'm the only gravity you have left. Why? She demanded, her voice trembling. Because of the past. Because you are the only thing in this world I have not destroyed, he said simply. He turned to leave for a meeting, but paused at the door. Tonight. The gala for the Ministry of Justice. You coming with me? Elena blinked. You taking me out? After locking me up? Choi will be there. Rumors are spreading that my marriage is a sham, a weakness. I need to show them. His eyes darkened. I need to show them that you are mine. Wear the red dress. The backless one. Why that one? Because, Tae-oh's voice dropped, thick with a dark promise, I want every man in that room to see the mark on your shoulder and wonder how I earned the right to touch it. And I want Choi to see that I have nothing to hide. It was a lie. He had everything to hide. But Tae-oh played a game of 4D chess where the pawns were made of blood and bone. The gala was a Shark Tank disguised as a ballroom. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto a sea of tuxedos and designer gowns. The air smelled of expensive perfume, champagne, and rot. Elena walked into the room on Tae-oh's arm, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. The red dress clung to her like a second skin, the silk cool against her feverish flesh. The back was open, exposing the crescent scar to the hungry eyes of Seoul's elite. Tae-oh was a wall of heat beside her. His hand rested on the small of her back, his fingers spreading possessively, burning through the fabric. He did not just hold her, he anchored her. Breathe, he murmured against her ear, his lips brushing the sensitive skin of her neck. If you faint, I'll have to shoot someone to create a distraction. Do not make me work overtime. A nervous giggle escaped her throat. You terrible. I'm effective. They moved through the crowd, a parting sea. Men bowed. Women whispered behind fans, their eyes darting from Tae-oh's scar-hidden neck to Elena's exposed one. Director Kong, a voice oiled with malice cut through the chatter. Elena froze. Her blood turned to slush in her veins. Standing before them, holding a flute of champagne, was Choi Min-suk. He looked different up close than he had in the alley. The blood was washed from his hands, replaced by a manicure. His white suit was pristine. But his eyes, those reptilian, dead eyes, were exactly the same. Choi, Tae-oh greeted, his voice bored, smooth as glass. His hand on Elena's back tightened, not in fear, but in warning. Do not move. And this must be the lovely bride, Choi purred, his gaze raking over Elena. He paused at her shoulder, his eyes lingering on the scar. A whirlwind romance, I hear. From, where was it? Vladivostok. Elena stopped breathing. He knew. We met in Paris, Teo lied effortlessly, his body shifting slightly to shield her. Though my wife prefers privacy. Something you struggle with, Choi. I hear the police are asking interesting questions about the trade minister's sudden departure. Choi's smile did not waver, but the air between the two men crackled with violence. It was a standoff between wolves, civilized only by the tuxedos. The police are confused, Choi said lightly. Just like your wife seems to be. She looks pale. Perhaps the climate in Seoul does not agree with her. He stepped closer, invading their personal space. Or perhaps she saw something that upset her. The city can be so ugly at night. Elena's knees buckled. He was baiting her. He was telling her, I know you were in the alley. Teo's hand moved. It slid from her back to her waist, pulling her so hard against his side that the breath left her lungs. My wife, Teo said, his voice dropping to a subterranean growl that made the hair on Elena's arms stand up, is under the protection of the Kong Syndicate. If the climate upsets her, I will change the weather. If the city is ugly, I will burn it down and rebuild it for her. Do you understand, Choi? The threat was absolute. Touch her, and I end you. Choi chuckled, a dry, rattling sound. Romance. It makes men reckless, Kong. Enjoy your honeymoon. They are often so short. He walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Elena let out a shuddering breath, her legs giving way. Teo caught her instantly, his arm a steel band around her waist. He knows, she whispered, terror clawing at her throat. Teo, he knows who I am. He suspects, Teo corrected, steering her toward the exit. If he knew, you'd be dead. We leaving. The car is, forget the car. Teo scanned the room, his eyes sharp, calculating. We being watched. The exits are compromised. He grabbed her hand, interlacing their fingers. Do you trust me? Elena looked at him. The monster who had locked her up. The boy who had saved her from the fire. The man who was currently the only shield she had against the dark. Yes, she breathed. Then run. He did not lead her to the lobby. He pulled her through the kitchen doors, startling the staff. They sprinted past steaming pots and shouting chefs, exiting into the service alley behind the hotel. Rain was falling again, a heavy, drowning deluge. Teo, where are we going? Safe house, he grunted, pulling a phone from his pocket. My driver is compromised. I saw him signal Choi's men. A black SUV screeched around the corner, headlights blinding them. Not Teo's car. Get down. Teo tackled her into the wet pavement behind a dumpster just as the air exploded. Bullets chewed into the brick wall above their heads, sending shards of masonry raining down on them. Elena screamed, curling into a ball. Teo covered her body with his own, a human shield. She could feel his heart pounding against her back, not in fear, but in a rhythm of war. He pulled a gun from his waistband, when had he hidden that? And returned fire, the loud crack deafening in the narrow alley. Stay down, he roared, rolling off her to get a better angle. He was lethal. Efficient. He moved with the same fluid grace he used in the boardroom, but here, the currency was lead. Two men dropped near the SUV. Elena, get to the driver's seat. Go. I see a not drive a stick. Learn. Now. He provided cover fire as she scrambled over the wet asphalt toward the idling SUV. The driver was slumped over the wheel, dead. She yanked the door open, pulled the body out, bile rising in her throat, and jumped in. Teo fired 3 more shots, then sprinted for the car. He dove into the passenger seat just as the back window shattered into 1,000 diamonds. Drive. Elena stomped on the gas. The car fishtailed, tires screaming on the wet road, before finding traction and rocketing forward. They sped through the streets of Seoul, running red lights, Teo barking directions. Left. Hard right. Into the tunnel. Only when they were miles away, hidden in the labyrinth of the industrial district, did Teo signal her to stop. The car idled in the shadows of a shipping container yard. The rain drummed relentlessly on the roof. Elena's hands were shaking so hard she could not let go of the steering wheel. Her breath came in jagged gasps. "Are you hit?" Teo's voice was rough. "No. You." "I'm fine." He reached over, prying her fingers from the wheel. His hands were warm, sticky with something that was not rain. "You re-bleeding," she whispered, staring at the dark stain spreading on his white shirt, just above his ribs. "It's a graze. I've had worse shaving." He looked at her, really looked at her. Her hair was a mess, her dress ruined, her face streaked with rain and grime. And in that moment, the adrenaline seemed to drain out of him, replaced by a crushing realization. "I failed," he whispered. The admission sounded like it broke something inside him. "I promised to protect you. I put you in the line of fire." "You saved me," Elena argued, reaching for his hand. "No." He recoiled, slamming his fist against the dashboard. The violence of the action made her jump. "I brought you into my world. I put a target on your back. Choi did not shoot at us because of a photo, Elena. He shot at us because he saw how I looked at you. He knows you my heart." He turned to her, his eyes wild, tortured. "The immovable heart. That's what the tattoo on my neck means. It means once I love, I do not change. I do not break. And Choi knows that if he breaks you, he breaks me." He unbuckled his seatbelt and leaned toward her, his forehead resting against hers. His skin was burning. "I have to send you away," he choked out. "America. Switzerland. Somewhere he not find you." "No," Elena said. The refusal surprised even her. "Elena, you almost died tonight. And I would have died in that alley 3 days ago if not for you." She grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. The somatic connection was intense, her cold hands against his fever-hot skin, the smell of gunpowder and blood filling the small space. "I'm not leaving you, Nikki. Not again. I'm not the little girl in the fire anymore." "You are soft," he groaned, his hand sliding down to cup her neck, his thumb tracing her pulse. "You are light. You do not belong in the dark with me." "Then bring the light to me," she challenged. "Or drag me down. I do not care. But I'm not leaving." Teo stared at her, his chest heaving. The conflict in his eyes was a war between his need to keep her safe and his selfish, desperate need to keep her close. "God help me," he whispered. "I am going to ruin you." He kissed her then. It was not the chaste, threatening kiss from the wedding. It was a collision. A desperate, bloody claiming. His mouth devoured hers, tasting of violence and despair. Elena melted into him, her hands clutching his ruined shirt, pulling him closer, needing to feel the proof of his life against hers. For a moment, in the rain-battered car, they were not the mafia boss and the witness. They were two orphans clinging to each other in the ashes of the world. But the world was not done burning. A bright light flooded the car interior. Not a street light. A spotlight. A helicopter. Teo tore his mouth from hers, looking up. "No. No, that's impossible." Heavy machinery groaned around them. The shipping containers. They were moving. It's a trap, Teo realized, his voice turning to ice. They did not chase us. They herded us. The container to their left swung open. Men in tactical gear poured out. Not Choi's thugs. Mercenaries. Pros. "Get out." Teo shoved her door open. "Run to the river. Do not look back. I'm not leaving you. Go." He roared, the sound tearing his throat. He shoved her, hard, sending her stumbling out into the rain. Elena scrambled up, looking back. Teo had stepped out of the car, his gun raised. He stood alone against a dozen armed men, a demon in a blood-soaked tuxedo. "Run, Malish." He screamed, not looking at her. "Run or I put a bullet in my own head right now." The threat froze her. He meant it. He would die to ensure she moved. Sobbing, Elena turned and ran. She ran through the maze of metal crates, her bare feet slipping on the mud. Behind her, gunfire erupted. A symphony of violence. She heard Teo shouting, heard the wet thud of bodies hitting the ground. She reached the chain-link fence at the edge of the yard, scrabbling up the metal. She dropped to the other side, landing hard on her ankle. Pain shot up her leg, white-hot and blinding. She dragged herself into the bushes, gasping, wiping rain from her eyes. She looked back through the fence. The shooting had stopped. In the center of the yard, under the glare of the helicopter spotlight, Teo was on his knees. He was surrounded. Blood poured from a wound in his shoulder, another in his leg. He was still holding his gun, but it was empty. The slide was locked back. A man walked into the circle of light. Choi. Choi kicked the gun from Teo's hand. He leaned down, whispering something that made Teo lunge, only to be beaten back down by rifle butts. Elena clamped her hand over her mouth to stifle a scream. Choi gestured. Two mercenaries grabbed Teo, dragging him toward a black van. Teo did not fight them. He lifted his head, his face a mask of blood and fury. He looked directly at the darkness where Elena was hiding. He could not see her, but he knew. Stay hidden, his eyes begged. Survive. They threw him into the van. The doors slammed shut. The vehicles roared to life, the helicopter banked away, and within seconds, the yard was empty. Elena was alone in the mud. The rain washed over her, cold and indifferent. She touched her stomach, a phantom sensation of nausea and hollowness expanding inside her. The golden cage was gone. The protector was gone. She was not the witness anymore. She was not the wife. She was the weapon he had left behind. Elena reached into her bra. She had stolen Teo's spare magazine from the car console when he shoved her out. It was heavy, cold steel against her skin. She stood up, ignoring the screaming pain in her ankle. Her eyes, usually soft and terrified, hardened into something unrecognizable. The same darkness that lived in Teo's eyes now flickered in hers. You should have killed me, Choi, she whispered to the empty night. She turned and began to limp back toward the city. The monster was gone. Now, the ghost had to go to war. The neon sign of the Blue Lotus Club buzzed with the sound of angry hornets, flickering against the relentless Seoul rain. It was 3:00 a.m. The alley smelled of stale beer and garbage, the same scent that had coated Elena's throat the night she became a witness. But tonight, she did not smell it. She smelled only the metallic tang of the gun magazine clutched in her hand, the steel warming against her palm. She pushed past the bouncer. He moved to block her, a wall of muscle in a cheap suit. We reclosed, lady. Get lost. Elena did not stop. She did not even blink. She raised her head, her hair plastered to her skull, her ruined red dress clinging to her shivering frame like a bloody bandage. She looked him dead in the eye, channeling the terrifying stillness she had seen in Teo. I am Elena Kong, she said, her voice raspy but steady. I own this building. I own you. Move. The bouncer hesitated. He saw the ring, the massive diamond catching the neon light. He saw the eyes, void of fear, filled with a cold, frantic purpose. He stepped back. Elena limped into the empty club. The cleaning crew was mopping up the night's sins. Sitting at the bar, nursing a glass of water, was Director Han, the head of security who had smelled her fear in the alley days ago. He looked up, his hand instantly going to the holster under his jacket. Mrs. Kong, Han said, his face unreadable. We thought you were dead. The news is reporting a gas explosion at the docks. No survivors. Teo is alive, Elena said, reaching the bar. She slammed the heavy pistol magazine onto the polished wood. The sound echoed like a gunshot. Choi has him. Han stared at the magazine, then at her. If Choi has him, he's already dead. Or he will be soon. There is nothing to be done. The board is already convening to carve up the territory. The board is a pack of vultures, Elena spat. She grabbed a bottle of vodka from behind the bar, cracked the seal, and took a long, burning pull. It tasted like courage. You re not a vulture, Han. You, Rhea Wolf. Teo trusts you. I am a realist. We cannot storm Choi's estate. He has an army. We do not need an army. Elena wiped her mouth. The alcohol hit her empty stomach, sending a wave of heat through her frozen limbs. We need a distraction. And I know exactly what Choi wants. And what is that? Me. Elena turned, the ghost of a smile playing on her lips. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of someone who had realized they had nothing left to lose. He wants to break Teo. And the only way to break the immovable heart is to show him his heart being ripped out. She leaned forward, her eyes burning. Get me a gun that fits this magazine. And get me a wire. I'm going to surrender. Han looked at her for a long time. He saw the tremble in her hands, yes. But he also saw the steel underneath. He saw the reflection of Kang Teo's madness. He will kill you, Han warned. He can try, Elena whispered. But he forgot one thing. I was born in a fire. I do not burn. Choi's private clinic was a fortress of glass and white concrete nestled in the hills of Bukhansan. It was designed to look like a sanctuary for the wealthy sick, but everyone in the underworld knew it was where problems went to be surgically removed. The rain had turned into a torrential downpour, masking the sound of the lone car driving up the winding road. Elena sat in the back, her hands cuffed in front of her. Han drove, his knuckles white on the wheel. The wire is live, Han murmured into his earpiece. My team is positioned at the perimeter. But we see a not breach until the gates open. You have to get us inside, Mrs. Kang. Just drive, Elena said. Her heart was beating so hard it felt like it was bruising her ribs. Breathe. Just breathe. They reached the gate. Guards with assault rifles swarmed the car. Han rolled down the window. I have a gift for Director Choi, Han said, his voice flat. The girl. She came crawling back. The guard shone a light in Elena's face. She flinched, playing the part. She let her lip tremble. She let the tears that were always threatening to fall spill over. Check her, the guard commanded. They dragged her out. Rough hands patted her down. They found no weapons. They did not check the heel of her left stiletto, where a ceramic razor was embedded. They did not know about the transceiver sewn into the lining of her bra. Clear. Bring her in. The director is in the operating theater. They dragged her through the sterile white corridors. The smell of antiseptic was overpowering, choking her. It smelled like death disguised as cleanliness. They pushed her through a set of double doors. The room was freezing. White tiles. Stainless steel tables. And in the center, strapped to a chair that was bolted to the floor, was Teo. Elena's breath hitched in a sob that was not acting. He was ruined. His white shirt was gone. His torso, that beautiful canvas of ink and muscle, was a map of fresh violence. Lacerations, burns, bruises that were already turning black. His head hung low, blood dripping from his chin onto his chest. Teo, she whispered. His head snapped up. His left eye was swollen shut, but the right one found her instantly. And the look in it was not relief. It was pure, unadulterated horror. No, he rasped, blood bubbling past his lips. Elena, run. How touching. Choi stepped out from the shadows. He was wearing a plastic apron over his suit, speckled with red. He held a scalpel like a conductor's baton. The prodigal wife returns. I must say, Mrs. Kang, I underestimated your stupidity. You came back to die with him. I came to make a deal, Elena said, her voice shaking but loud. A deal. Choi laughed, a wet, ugly sound. You have nothing I want. I have him. I have his empire. And in about 10 minutes, after I finish peeling the tattoo from his neck, I will have the satisfaction of watching the light go out of his eyes. I have the encryption key, Elena lied. To the offshore accounts. Teo gave it to me the night of the wedding. 4 billion won. You want the money, Choi? Or just the blood? Choi paused. Greed flickered in his eyes. The key. In my head. I'll give it to you. But you let him go. Elena, stop. Teo roared, straining against his bonds. The leather creaked. Do not listen to her. Kill me, Choi. Leave her alone. Silence. Choi struck Teo across the face with the handle of the scalpel. Teo's head snapped back. Elena screamed, lunging forward, but the guards held her back. The code, Choi demanded, turning to her. Give it to me. Unstrap him first. Choi smiled. No. He walked over to Teo, placing the tip of the scalpel against the immovable heart characters on his neck. Give me the code, or I sever his jugular right now. Elena looked at Teo. He was staring at her, begging her with his one good eye to leave, to survive. But she was not leaving. She closed her eyes. Han, she whispered. Now. Boom. The charges Han's team had planted on the main transformer detonated. The lights died. Total darkness swallowed the room. Secure the prisoner. Choi screamed. Elena dropped. She did not run away, she dropped to the floor, her hand ripping the heel off her shoe. She found the ceramic razor. Chaos erupted. Gunfire from the hallway. Red emergency lights flickered on, bathing the room in a hellish crimson glow. Elena scrambled across the floor on her hands and knees, sliding through the blood and slick tiles. She reached Teo just as a guard lunged for him. She did not think. She slashed the razor across the guard's Achilles tendon. He howled and went down. Elena. Teo gasped. I'm here. She sliced through the leather strap binding his left hand. Then the right. Teo was free. And the moment he was free, the dynamic of the room shifted. He did not collapse. He did not cower. He rose from the chair like a demon ascending from the pit. He ignored his pain, ignored his wounds. He grabbed the scalpel from the tray beside him. Choi turned, his eyes widening in the red light. Kill them. Choi shrieked. Two guards raised their rifles. Teo moved faster than a human should. He threw the scalpel. It embedded itself in the throat of the first guard. He grabbed the falling man's rifle, spun, and put 2 rounds into the second guard's chest. Efficiency. Brutal, terrifying efficiency. But Choi was running. He bolted for the rear exit. Stay here, Teo commanded Elena, his voice a low growl of pain and rage. No, she said, grabbing the pistol from the dead guard's holster. She stood up, her ankle screaming, her dress ruined, looking every bit the mafia queen she had pretended to be. We finish this together. Teo looked at her. He saw the gun in her hand. He saw the fire in her eyes. He nodded once. They moved into the hallway. It was a war zone. Han's men were breaching the windows. Smoke filled the air. They found Choi in the loading dock. He was fumbling with the keys to an armored van. He turned as they entered, raising a revolver. You do not get to win. Choi screamed, his composure shattered. I am the future of Seoul. He fired. The bullet was not meant for Teo. He knew he could not kill the monster. He aimed for the weakness. Time seemed to slow down. Elena saw the muzzle flash. She could not move fast enough. But Teo could. No. He did not tackle her. He stepped in front of her. He took the bullet. It hit him in the chest, the impact spinning him around. Teo. Elena's scream tore her throat. Teo fell to one knee, clutching his chest. Choi laughed, cocking the hammer for a second shot. Goodbye, Mrs. Kong. Elena did not look at Teo. She looked at Choi. She did not feel fear anymore. She felt a cold, absolute zero. She raised the gun. She did not aim for the chest. She aimed for the face. She pulled the trigger. Bang. Choi's head snapped back. He crumpled to the concrete, dead before he hit the ground. The silence that followed was deafening. Elena dropped the gun. She fell to her knees beside Teo. Blood was pouring between his fingers. Dark, arterial blood. "Nikki," she sobbed, pressing her hands over his, trying to stem the tide. "No, no, no. You promised. You said you would not break." Teo looked up at her. His skin was gray, his breathing ragged and wet. But he smiled. A genuine, soft smile that looked out of place on his battered face. "I did not break," he whispered, blood coating his teeth. "I protected what was mine." "You idiot. You absolute idiot." Tears streamed down her face, mixing with his blood on her hands. "Do not you dare die. Do you hear me? I will kill you myself if you die. Malish." He reached up, his bloody hand cupping her cheek. "The fire, it's out now." "No." She grabbed his face. "Han. Help him." Han and the medics were swarming them. Hands pulled her away. "Let me go," she fought, kicking and screaming. Teo. The last thing she saw before the sedative needle pricked her neck was Teo's eyes, fixed on her, heavy and full of love, sliding shut. 3 years later the orphanage in Vladivostok had been rebuilt. It was no longer a grim, gray building of concrete and despair. It was painted a soft yellow. There were gardens. There was a new heating system. Elena stood by the gate, watching the children play in the snow. She wore a coat of white cashmere, the collar turned up against the Russian winter. She looked expensive, untouchable, but her eyes were warm. "They look happy," a deep voice rumbled beside her. Elena turned. Teo stood there. He leaned slightly on a cane, an ebony stick with a silver handle shaped like a dragon. The limp was permanent, a souvenir from the bullet that had shattered his hip and clipped his lung. The scars on his face had faded to thin white lines, but they were there, mapping the history of his violence. He looked older. The darkness in him had not vanished, but it had settled. It was no longer a storm, it was a deep, still ocean. "They are happy," Elena said, slipping her gloved hand into his. "Because they know someone is watching over them." "You spoil them," Teo grunted, though his thumb stroked the back of her hand possessively. "We have donated enough to buy the city. It's never enough." A small sound came from the stroller Teo was pushing with his free hand. A coup. Elena smiled, leaning down to adjust the blanket. Inside, wrapped in layers of wool, was a boy with Teo's dark eyes and Elena's mouth. "Min-ho is waking up," she said softly. Teo looked down at his son. The look on his face, the same look he had given Elena in the hospital when he finally woke up from the coma, was one of terrifying, absolute devotion. "Let him wake," Teo said. "The world is his. And if he wants to burn it down." Elena teased, straightening up. Teo smirked, the predator flashing behind the father's eyes. "Then we hand him the matches." He pulled her close, kissing her forehead. The cold wind whipped around them, but Elena felt nothing but heat. The heat of the men who had walked through hell to find her, and the men she had walked back into hell to save. "Ready to go home, Mrs. Kong?" he asked. "Home to Seoul. Home is wherever you are, Malish." Elena looked at the scars on his neck, the immovable heart tattoo, now bisected by a thin white line from Choi's scalpel. It was not perfect anymore. It was better. It was tested. "Yes," she said. "Let's go home." They turned and walked toward the waiting car, the snow crunching under their feet. They left the orphanage behind, but they carried the fire with them, not the fire that destroys, but the fire that keeps the cold at bay. The golden cage was gone. They had melted the bars down and built a kingdom. And God help anyone who tried to take it from them.